Hello, Starshine. My name is Liz, and this is my channel, Simsational Stories. If you have not seen my videos before and you enjoy this one, please like and subscribe. And maybe check out my Facebook page, where this whole thing began as well. Just be aware that I may be way further ahead there than I am here on my channel, so only look it up if you're alright with spoilers. All relevant links are in the description below, and of course if you're a Sims player and you'd like to download any of the characters featured in my stories, just search the hashtag Simsational Stories on the Sims 4 gallery. All original content is created by This Is Not Eric. Alrighty then, so, welcome, and what is up, Buttercup? Are you having a good day? Or a bad day? Whichever your answer, please allow me to distract you from your life and tell you a story. A Simsational story. Before I begin though, I would like to issue this blanket content and trigger warning. The following story is entirely fictional, comically dramatic, and probably rather ridiculous. All my stories are. The characters are quite often caricatures, the subject matter taboo and or toxic, and the turn of phrase frankly rather falutin at times. I want to assure you now that, although I mean absolutely no harm, I completely understand if you feel unable to consume my content. Many loves, and we will catch each other on the internet elsewhere. Okay, so now we've gotten that over with, let's go. Today's story is from Magnus Down and the StrangerVille mystery, and we're at chapter 1. The introduction reads, always a bit of a nerd, it was almost inevitable that Magnus would grow up to be a scientist. But what wasn't inevitable was what happened next. Magnus knew he could do it. His co-workers had scoffed at him. Half of them didn't even believe in aliens. They needed proof, they said. Well, proof was what they were going to get thanks to him. He was documenting every second of this. Magnus started exploring immediately. The planet was beautiful. Glowing plants surrounded him, and was that? Yes, it was. There was something moving on the horizon. Not something, but someone. Magnus rushed over excitedly. He couldn't wait to introduce himself. This was awesome. He'd never expected anything as amazing and wonderful as all this. Not in his wildest dreams. But to Magnus's surprise and shock, he was being escorted off the planet. Sixam, was that where he was? Didn't want him there. Magnus tried to protest. He had had a son that was one of them. Didn't that matter to them? That was when Magnus found out the truth. Babies born of alien abductions weren't any more wanted on Sixam than he himself was. They were merely being used as an emergency insurance policy against the species' extinction, designed to grow up alone and isolated from their home planet. Looking down into his son's precious face after returning home, Magnus couldn't believe that anyone could not want him. Oberon was absolutely extraordinary, and Sixam were missing out. Still, Magnus decided that he was going back to Sixam, but not to try to change anyone's mind. Oberon was better off without them. No. Magnus was going back to Sixam because he was a scientist. He was careful to hide this time, so he didn't get sent home again. Studying the alien planet was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity he wasn't going to miss out on. Magnus was sneaking around taking samples one day when he heard a noise behind him. It was another alien. All ready to be escorted off the planet again, Magnus was shocked when Kil'aya Nimaru introduced herself with a friendly smile. Kil'aya was very interested in Magnus's story. She couldn't help it. She had been assigned to be a pollination technician and was halfway through her training. She had even participated in an insemination. As she gushed over the photos of Oberon that Magnus happily showed her, he had a question. Did she want to meet Oberon, maybe? Kil'aya snuck down to Earth that day with Magnus. It was against every protocol in the book, but she had to know what she was going to be creating. Looking down into those galaxial eyes, Kil'aya felt her heart skip a beat. He was simply gorgeous. Kil'aya came back to Sixam a different Sim. She even let Magnus take a photo with her before he left. They had shared so much that afternoon that she knew it didn't matter anymore. For Magnus and Kil'aya had fallen in love. Already half in love from the moment he saw her, the way she looked at Oberon had been it for Magnus. And Kil'aya found Magnus irresistibly fascinating. He'd awoken in her something she'd never felt before. Kil'aya started spending so much time on Earth with Magnus that her eyebrows grew in. Something about the planet's atmosphere stimulated follicles left dormant on Sixam, and she knew it was a sign she had to make a choice. It wasn't a hard choice to make. Magnus had helped her see that she wanted a different life. The way he loved and strived for his son had made her realize that she wanted to be able to experience that for herself someday. Kil'aya also felt a strong connection to Oberon. If she hadn't met Magnus, she could have been creating babies just like Oberon for the rest of her life. Now that she knew what precious little creatures they were, she couldn't even begin to imagine it. The very thought made her sick. And being an alien too, especially a half-trained pollination technician, Kil'aya was able to explain a few things to Magnus about his son. Aliens had some surprises up their sleeves. Seeing Kil'aya's human form was just the beginning of it, she explained to him. Aliens could also analyze a Sim's personality, transmute items, empathize feelings, even make a Sim forget them entirely. Magnus was shocked but impressed. Oberon had a special relationship with Kil'aya too. When he started calling her Mama, she didn't have the heart to correct him. And wasn't she basically his mother? She looked after him all day while Magnus worked, didn't she? He was her baby now. And Earth was her home. Kil'aya knew she could never go back to Sixam now. She was going to stay here with Magnus and Oberon forever. They made the perfect family. She had been on long service leave before, but just after Oberon's 2nd birthday, she finally resigned her post for good. At home, they were able to be themselves, but when they left the house, Oberon and Kil'aya disguised themselves. Magnus loved science, but he didn't want his family to become experiments. Oberon didn't entirely understand the game Mama wanted to play, but he was a happy child and loved to please. Besides, they didn't go out often. They were going for a walk one day when Kil'aya noticed some sort of weird plant. It almost looked like something from home, but Magnus dismissed it. He'd lived in StrangerVille all his life, and those glowing plants had always been around. They were completely normal Earth plants. But Kil'aya knew they were anything but normal. She'd been all over Earth during her training period, and she had never seen anything like them on this planet before. Something weird was going on, and she didn't know what it was, but she was determined to get to the bottom of it. And that brings us to the end of Chapter 2 of Magnus Down and the StrangerVille Mystery. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can tune in soon to hear the next chapter. Or like I said, look us up on Facebook for spoilers. Just don't say I didn't warn you. Bye!